This is a report on my project for Systematic Theology 2. Paper that I wrote is a partial fulfillment for the requirements of this course, detailed more than 40 years of ministry by my father, the Reverend U.G.ST. Craft. During that time, he served as the pastor of only one congregation. He was the sole or senior pastor for 21 years. He and I worked together for approximately 20 years. He has been retired but still a part of the church for almost 10 years. As I wrote that paper, my curiosity was pricked and a question formed in my mind. How does the tenure of the pastor affect the growth of the church? Does a longer tenure encourage or inhibit growth? It has been my observation that churches with long-term pastorates tend to experience a greater growth. I chose a district of the United Pentecostal Church as the sample for the study. I simply assert that that district is broadly representative of the United Pentecostal Church as a whole. 2 attempts were made to contact a representative of each church in the district. Each attempt consisted of an unbiased interviewer making several attempts by telephone to reach someone at the numbers listed in the church directory circulated by headquarters. We were able to contact 30 churches. In each instance where contact was made, an attempt was made to administer an oral survey regarding the longevity of the pastor's tenure and the growth of the congregation. A prepared script was utilized by the research assistant in an attempt to elicit usable data. In a final analysis, 15 churches yielded usable data. One of those churches is inactive. There are no regular services. A second church declined to be interviewed. So 13 churches produced the data for the results that I will discuss today. All of the data is self-reported. There was no attempt made to get an independent data or to confirm that which was reported by the individual that was contacted at each church. The 2 variables that we considered were pastoral longevity and growth of the church. The length of stay or longevity was collected in discrete intervals as demonstrated in the data tables. 4 churches had pastors who had been there 3 years or less, and 3 churches had pastors who had been there from 6 to 10 years. Those 2 groups were combined for the analysis, making up a shorter pastorate cohort. 2 churches had pastors who had been there from 11 to 15 years. No churches had pastors who had been there from 16 to 20, and 1 pastor had been at the church for 21 to 25 years. I'm sorry, I misstated that. 3 churches had pastors who had been there from 16 to 20 years. This made up the cohort that we had did data analysis for the longer pastoral tenure. 54% of the churches had the same pastor for less than 10 years. 46% of the churches have had the same pastor for more than 10 years. Those 2 groups provided our analysis. Growth was a computed value. Respondents were asked to report the attendance of the church when the current pastor arrived and to report the current average attendance of the church. Growth was computed by subtracting the arrival average attendance from the current average attendance. For descriptive purposes, the respondents were asked the current attendance at the largest service each week as a representative comparison. The churches in the sample were primarily smaller churches 5 were between 21 and 40, 4 were between 41 and 60, 1 was between 101 and 125, and 3 were between 126 and 150 in attendance. A simple method of comparing the growth of the churches is to divide the churches into two groups by longevity. When the 7 churches with the lowest longevity are compared to the 6 churches with the greatest longevity, that is, the short-term pastorates are compared with the long-term pastorates, the average growth of the churches with short-term pastorates was 27.1. The average growth of the 6 churches with higher longevity factors is 38.8. Thus, this appears to confirm the hypothesis that churches with greater pastoral longevity appear to grow more than churches with lower longevity. However, the researcher is aware that 3 of the churches in the lower category recently transitioned to new pastors after long-term pastorates. If those 3 churches, who were greatly affected by both the pastorate of an older man, are moved to the group labeled long-term pastoral longevity, the average growth of each group would still demonstrate the truth of the hypothesis. In that case, the short-term pastoral group has an average growth of 19.3, and the long-term pastoral group has an average growth of 32. A more scientific approach to the data quickly disproves the hypothesis. The calculation of the correlation coefficient for the data results in the value of 0.00889. Correlation coefficients range from a -1 to a +1. A -1 is a strong negative correlation. A +1 is a strong positive correlation. As one value increases, the other value would also increase. According to our hypothesis, we would expect the correlation coefficient to be somewhere close to 1. The extremely small correlation coefficient of 0.009 indicates that there is a minimal relationship between pastoral longevity and church growth in the data gathered by this study. Thus, I would say that the data gathered by the study do not support the hypothesis, for there is a very low correlation between pastoral longevity and church growth in the data generated by this study. The study should be reproduced with a larger sample to determine if the result is consistent, or if, in fact, the small sample may have created difficulty in the interpretation of the data. Thus, a surface analysis would tend to indicate that we have a correlation, whereas a scientific calculation demonstrates otherwise. Thank you.